off out enjoying herself. She's into town now. She got to get some supplies, much needed supplies. She got to try and get over the bridge out of the village. It's just about still standing after the heavy floods. Right, I thought we'd just have a bit of a wander round and fill you in on what we've been getting up to, and some of the effects that we've encountered after the waters have ebbed away. We haven't had any more rain. It's just been brilliant. We've had the thunder and lightning for the last 3 nights. So ever since like D-Day, we haven't had any heavy rain at all, which is just brilliant. Really, really good. Toon's already been out this morning. She went and cut some lucina with her mum for the goats. I've been doing like feeding troughs for the goats. We're just so short of room where they are at the moment, and I'll go and show you in a minute. While she was out, a gentleman popped in. It was the guy that walked out of his farm sort of like that high and that deep in water, and bless him, everything in his house just went. And he came here, his bike had been totally submerged, but he managed to push it out and he left it here for a few days. And he popped here and he dropped off the clothes that I'd let him borrow so he could walk into the village. And yeah, he dropped them off. A bit of a story with this guy, because many years ago, when I married Toon, you know, when you marry a Thai woman, even if you're a Thai bloke, you know, the old tradition is there's a bit of a dowry, and so you know you pay a little bit of money for the parents, basically to replace the daughter that they're losing for a while. It's not that they're necessarily gaining a son-in-law. It's you know, the daughters do the majority of the work around the houses and the farms, from what I've seen. And then you're inclined to buy a little bit of gold for your missus, and that's sort of like security. So if you bin her off, I know she could bin you off, then she's not left high and dry. You know, she's got a bit of gold that she could you know, use for whatever. But Toon asked me when we were planning all this, and she said, look, you know, my dad's never ever had any gold in his life. He's never ever worn any gold. What do you reckon if we'll get onto that bloke in a minute. It is linked, honest. Is it all right if we buy the gold, or you buy the gold and I give it to my dad? I was like, well, it's yours, it's up to you, totally. So yeah, we bought him a nice gold chain and he wore it, chuffed to pieces. He's such a genuine lovable guy, and yeah, he took great pride in wearing it. But of course, when he was working on the farm here, because Toon's mum and dad lived here for quite a few years, even after we got hold of the land, he would take it off, wouldn't he? So you don't want to risk losing it while you're digging up cassava and sowing rice. And yeah, someone broke into the house while him and Toon's mum were in the rice paddy, and only a few days later a certain guy bought a new tractor, put a big deposit down on a new tractor, and anyway, a few weeks after that he got arrested, something to do with drugs and that, and yeah, the tractor got repossessed and that sort of thing. So rumour has it, you know, who this guy is. Never been able to prove it. So even that, bearing that in mind, we move on, don't we? And Toon moved on, and it was her dad, so I thought, well, if she can move on, no excuse for me not to. So yeah, probably totally not linked, those two things. Right then, let's have a look at the rabble. And it is a rabble. We're in a total state of upheaval. No one knows who's in charge or where they're supposed to be. Of course, when they were in the big house, everyone had their place. The pecking order was firmly in place, and that went for the venti, the small goats that we got here. So the situation we got now is this house is too small. This primarily was just for the newborns and for the new nannies. It was never designed to house about 60 odd goats. So feeding time, we were letting them out here, which was brand new pasture. When I say brand new, it hadn't been touched for about 3 weeks. We really let it grow high, and we let them out here, and they really went to town. Maybe too much, but there was still standing water in here. It hasn't all soaked in or run off, and it was just too lush and too wet, and there was a big outbreak of the trots. So I mean, luckily we haven't lost any more little ones through poisoning. That does look okay. We've got a little Nike on the right there. She's got the trots, but I think that was from letting her out on here, and she does like her green grass. So we're keeping them all in here at the moment and feeding them in here. These are just old Gatin Lucina piles. I did have a table already set up here that I'd knocked up a few months back, and I've started to extend it temporarily with an old framework of a table here, but this needs to be twice as long. The problem with the Gatin is, you can see a lot of it, with the goats being messy eaters, a lot of it gets hit onto the floor, and then once they pee or poo or stand on it, it doesn't get eaten. So after they've gone to town on this for half a day, I take it off there and I put it into the big piles. This is the fresh pile, which they still peck and peck on. The little ones seem to get the chance to get that. If the little ones go in here, they just get smashed by the big ones. Got an old Lucina pile here. They'll still peck and eat the woody bits, which is good, I suppose, with some of them having the trots. Little April, she bloody eats anything anyway. So this is destined for my biochar. I've still got half a biochar pit to empty out, and I'm just going to keep throwing it all over the place here, and just trying to keep the place clean, but it is an uphill battle. So I'll rake underneath here and then throw it into this low bit here. I've already put loads of biochar in there as well. And then here there's a new idea that I had to try and maximise what they're eating, because I say there's a lot of waste feeding goats, and so we've been shredding Lucina as well. You can see all they've left is a few really woody bits. I mean, they do still eat some of it. As this dries, they will eat more and more of it. So yeah, I knocked up this one yesterday as a bit of a trial, and it worked. They didn't sort of jump in there and wreck it, so I've knocked up another one here, just utilising the timber on our land, because don't forget, we're living on Fangorn Forest, aka our eucalyptus here. We're getting through that. We'd started using it, building our boardwalk onto the island, but I thought we've got to keep these goats full. So they're in here all the time now, and yeah, it's a real bloody squeeze, and there's lots of bickering, and it's not 24/7 cleaning, but it's not far off it. Oh, Annette is all right. Sherbet's all right. She was a bit confused. She was fighting them on all fronts because she's the hierarchy. This is the girl that got bitten by a snake recently, and two managed to save her with a quick shot of antihistamine. So you're good, ain't you, girl? Hey, you got your smile back as well, ain't you? Hey, not so much when you're eating though. Yeah, well, you're not particularly happy, are you? Everyone is really hacked off with us. They're just like, this is the worst holiday ever, you guys. Yeah, you really haven't excelled on this little break for us. So how long they're going to be here, I do not know. it's mid-morning now. I need to raise up the mosquito net, try and get everything dry inside. So the setup that we had in here, now I was going to do a separate video, I might as well do it now. For those of you that follow us on Patreon or used to, this is one of the jobs that you've helped us with, guys. Again, if you're not aware, I've mentioned it in a previous video, we can't get access to doing updates on our how we're spending the money on Patreon. Apologies, but we're just locked out with our email logging in. So although the account's still working fine, you know, we're doing monthly updates, but hey ho, it's one of those things, and we fully appreciate why some of you left. No drama at all. So we took the main floor out and we dropped the roof down, or say we, it was one half of the two guys that works for us on and off here on the farm. So taking the middle out enables us to access and separate the goats a lot easier. So we've got a main entrance there, and then we split them up. So it's just basically, if anyone's sick, needs sort of like quarantining, anyone's got a bad stomach, you don't want them mixing with the other ones, then they go up there. We had started doing a feed trough along here, that's why we've left a bigger gap here, so that they can get their heads through, just like we've done this side in here, so we can fill this up at night time or if the weather's really bad. And it was working brilliantly until we've had to fit all this lot in. So like Bullseye, if you let him go up here, the whole area here will be void. No one will go up there. Maybe Sam, who's a nasty piece of work. She's a big unit and just smashes everyone. So we squeezed both of them in here and put a little gate against them, and then within a few minutes all this was full with goats. All the medium-sized goats, like the teenage goats, were in here, and then sort of like our older goats were all up here. Loads of fighting to start with, a nightmare trying to get them separated at night, because you can imagine the little goats are petrified of this lot, and they don't want to come in here. So it's like hang on mate, it does like my little toggle there, it does bite that, but you have to be careful because sometimes it doesn't bite the toggle and get something else. We normally do a fire in a tank in here, just to help to keep the temperature up, and it helps keep the place dry. You know, if the goats go away a bit wet, it helps to keep the mozzies away trying to get in here, but they just knock it over, and normally there's no goats in here, you see. It's a real struggle, but you know, at least we've got them off the island and we've got them dry. One of my jobs today, now I've done my second feeding trough over there, is I've got to wade out onto Goat Island again, and we've got these hanging bamboo baskets that we can put grass in. I'm going to clear this, which was our original little goat house, and I'm going to suspend the baskets up in here, and then when the rain comes, which we are forecast for, I think 65% chance rain from last night, and supposed to be 90 today. This is the far side of the solar room. I'll just show you where the water came up to. We've got a bit of a dip down here onto our back access road, and it was here. It's just unbelievable. You won't believe it now, but although it doesn't look it, this is actually lower. So all this area was flooded here, and there were catfish, walking catfish in here. I showed a very brief clip of all the worms we caught. All the worms were migrating up here, and the water came to where our little wood pile is here. But what looked even worse was over here. I thought my door tank, my giant snakehead tank, was going to flood. The water was here. and all the worms were coming up here. I was just filling my boots with worms. Yeah, I mean the Chador tank was up over the overflow pipe. So what I've done now, I've cut 3 slats in there, so when we get heavy rainfall, although I appreciate that the flood wasn't caused by heavy rainfall here, it wasn't even raining, it was bloody as sunny as it is now. It was purely the dam breaking. So yeah, it's the height should be about half of that now. I've only got 10 in here, none of them escaped from here. I put 17 in the lake. Another one had disappeared. I think it was another small one that got eaten by the others. So and I'd done a video, but it was I was going to publish it once I'd edited it, but I just haven't had time because everything just happened all at once. So whether there's any of those still in the lake, I wanted to keep count of them, so that once I saw Chador giant snakehead fry, then I could start taking the big ones out. So I'm just gonna have to stick with that now. As soon as I see the baby ones that can defend for themselves, then I'll start taking the big ones out. I want to keep an idea of the stock that we've got in there. So that was a bit of a bugger. The outside shower and bathrooms, which we put up years ago, ready for farm stays and camping, they were all flooded. The water was up here. Toon was fishing in here. Yeah, the grass is growing well. Oh dear. I still haven't replied to any of you guys. Sorry. Oh no, I'm not allowed to say sorry, someone said. Okay, you can see now that the water's dropped over there, the water's now coming out of the ponds. It's pretty clear. It's beautiful. It's almost like an aqua. It's scummy because I'd strimmed, so when it came up really high, all the strimming went in there. But if we didn't have that scum on there, that's lovely. Another few weeks, it'll be like last year, you'll be able to see the bottom. We've been eating plenty of crayfish. Yeah, some really nice sized male ones. What's happened now is we've slightly changed our thought process as regards what could we say, our resources on the farm, and been harping on about food abundance and creating like a wealth of food on here, not just for the goats but for me and Toon, and anything that was slightly undersized like crayfish, crabs, fish, stuff like that, snails. We've always stocked them somewhere else for the long term. Now if there's anything average size, we eat it, or we've been giving loads of stuff to Toon's mum. They like to make fermented fish, and she uses a lot of crabs as well, supposedly for diabetes, which she's got. There was a lot of female crabs there. Now we'd never ever use female crabs, and we still don't, but we did give a load to Toon's mum. We've been putting a trap in the little river, the drainage ditch. Been getting loads of crabs in there. That's something that we have stuck to now that Toon's mum's got enough crabs. Any female crabs, they go into the lake. Camera's overheated. I should have stuck with using the phone, shouldn't I? But I thought, right, I'm going to try and get back to normality with the videos and reply to comments and do a little bit of editing. And yeah, it's obviously struggling with the humidity and heat again. So yeah, the crabs, they're going back into the lake now. Behind the camera, I'll just show you where we've been doing a little bit of fishing. Not much, no time to do the videos. I'm trying to stay in the shade, guys, but there's a big rock down here and we've cleared all the napier around that so we can fish around there. Toon's been catching some lovely climbing perch out of there. I caught a huge one that was swimming up the road one night. I was catching snakehead out of here and heard this splashing and saw it and jumped over the fence and caught it with my own human hands. The wife was very impressed. Thankfully most of my mulch stayed in place. Thank goodness we've still got our enormodon walking catfish in here, and well, it's bigger than tune. Frightened the life out of the other night because the water was still on the shelf. Now when it was flooded over the top here, it was a steady non-stop train of catfish coming out of here. We caught a few down there, but most of them are over there. That's what the locals were catching. But yeah, when we put food in here, I can't say that we've got more than half a dozen left in here, but it looks like the 3 biggest ones couldn't make it out or chose to stay here. So there's a little bit of good luck, isn't it? We got our monster ones. Right, if I go over there in the full sun, the camera's probably gonna pack up again. I'll make a break for another coconut tree and try and record from there. It's quite short, this coconut tree. We put this in later. This one and the one down there, we put these in later than all the others. These are the ones that people use for just drinking the coconut milk, and they don't grow quite so tall as the big ones that they use for the coconut meat. So again, we're still no change of play really as far as the water this side goes. It's just totally waterlogged, and I think that's why the goats' stomachs took a bit of a hammering. Water's still coming down off the land into the drainage ditch, and it's slowly making its way around to the pipe over there. We're still yet to put a barrier across there. It's so overgrown. There's, I suppose, eels and climbing perch and a few snakehead might get out, but anything big in there is going to struggle to get through. And yeah, we've seen tilapia in the drainage ditch. That's where we're putting our crab trap. Yeah, it's doing very well. Just seen a nice fish come up in this bit here. So yeah, the water was all across here. Amazing. Can now see part of the boardwalk. Oh dear me. I have carried out some investigation on how many fish we've got left in the lake, and a few days ago I started coming down with pellet at night. You got to bear in mind, as soon as the pellets used to hit the water, it was like a, well, I don't know, a witch's cauldron bubbling away. It was just non-stop, full of fish. It took me about 3 or 4 minutes to see a single fish other than climbing perch, which isn't really what I was expecting. And then a few started to turn up, and then 2 nights ago and then yesterday, gradually getting more and more fish come here, but it's a small fraction of what it was. Obviously there's going to be loads of fish all in the island over there, but it's really hard to put an estimate on how many fish have got out. I did say tens of thousands. I'll stick with that. I mean, when we walked across here, this wasn't quite flooded, just this bit, so it has highlighted the low points. Again, we just don't know what we're going to do yet, guys. Whatever we do, it's a big decision or decisions. Water levels dropping in there now. It's just touching the fence there. So people were putting a standing net just behind our fence all the way along there. I tell you how bad it is with some people, aren't they terrible? The guy that's rice farm next door, he was putting standing hooks out, catching mudfish and all sorts, and he came back to check them, and some bugger had nicked all his standing hooks and the fish that were obviously on them. How terrible is that? We did see someone who we recognised walking there prior to them all disappearing. I hope you realise what I'm going through, guys. I'm having to blow on my battery, take my battery out of the camera and keep blowing on it just to cool it down so I can record a bit more. So I'm under our mango honey tree that's home to about 4 squirrels now. They love their mangoes, I tell you. So I think the mango tree is very happy. In here, a bit of good luck. From what I can make out, these striped catfish and the makongs really do appreciate the deep water. They seem to love it. I think we've got all the still got all of them. The water was just about at the top of at this here, so I don't think we've lost many, if any at all. And so the other night when I come down feeding the pellet to the fish in the lake, I threw a few over here. Oh, whoa, oh Jesus, so much for staying in the shade. I don't know whether they're bees or no, Dan, wasps in those old fish traps of Toon's nephew. Right there, Toon will be happy because she'll be collecting the eggs for fishing later on. So we're going to give fishing a bit of a crack later. I don't think we'll be able to record it. I might do a few little snippets with the phone, but the camera won't be up for it, I tell you. So yeah, it looks like our biggest fish in here are safe. Thank goodness. We've been growing these for years, you know, and these are the fish that Toon saved from being poached at the far end of the farm before we actually lived on the farm full time. So yeah, these are quite dear to us. I still haven't seen the Mekongs since Eddie was here. Went out to help him catch one. I can't bloody catch one now. So thankfully I didn't put them all in the lake. I had caught 16 of the striped catfish, pacu, giant gourami. I've seen our biggest pacu in the lake still, so that's okay. But I don't know. I can't say it's not as bad as I first thought. It's probably worse as regards fish go, but you know, fish will always come back and reproduce and grow big. It's Thai fish, thank goodness, they grow very, very quickly. And we've got Mekongs, Siamese, and a few others like Chinese big heads. They're up near the house. I'd put them in there because they were the safest. Thank God I did that. But if you just look at the scale of what we have to contemplate what we're going to do. There was 2 huge areas that were flooded, so I'm going to try and pick it out. From over there to here was underwater by about a foot, and then it was just gradually shallowed. So we've got a low point there, and then right over there where the pipe comes through from next door and we got the fence going across, it was coming over there, and again that was about a foot deep. So even if we get Macro Man back and build up those areas, everywhere else was just about to flood. I mean, it was lapping on the edges here. Now at first thoughts I thought, well, hang on a minute, what's the chances of a bloody dam breaking again? You know, it's pretty slim, isn't it? Okay, maybe it should have been in my risk assessment, but it wasn't. So I don't think that's an issue. Hopefully when they rebuild it, if they are going to rebuild it, then it's going to be bigger and stronger and better. This access point here, yeah, that definitely has to be built up the same as here. That's a no-brainer. We might have to make it very gradual so that we can drive Ben-Hur chariot over and to the other side when we need to get deliveries and stuff like that. But we were talking to, or Toon was talking to an elderly person in the village when she went out to get some food from the car that comes into the village selling stuff every day. And they were asking, you know, how we're coping and that. And he said, oh, thank God it wasn't as bad as 20 years ago. So he was like, what, 20 years ago? Yeah, it was about 2 foot higher than it was the other night. Oh, shit. So we built it higher than Toon's mum had ever witnessed before. But Toon's mum and dad weren't born and raised here. They'd only, I'd say about 18 years, or a few years before that, they'd had it even higher. And that wasn't from a dam bursting. So going by from what that guy was saying, if it was 2 foot higher, the house wouldn't be underwater. One of our outside sockets would be touch and go, but the solar room would be underwater by a couple of foot, 3 foot maybe. all of our ponds would be underwater, and all of the lake top road would be underwater. The goat house floor would still be okay, just. It's a real, I was going to say a naughty word, something to do with the brain, but so many things to think about what's going to be the way forward. It's not a simple case of getting Macro Man in to put things right, because if we were going to do that, it's almost like digging the lake again. All the shelves on the island and on the outside of the island would have to come out to build the mother of all walls around it, which is fine, because that stops flood. We can do that, but that would stop the flood water coming in. But what about the goat house in the middle? When you get the heavy rainfalls, like that guy was saying, 2 foot higher just from rainfall, well, that means you can't get to your goat house. So are we going to do a giant high road all the way to the goat house? I don't know. Really don't know. And if we need to get the goats off the island again, we now know that our goat house near our house is too small. To me, it's too much of a luxury to mirror the capacity of what we've got over there next to the house. It's just not viable. So do we look at reducing the head of our herd? That, to me, that would make the most sense. But you know, most of you know we've took on a loan from the bank, and you know, our figures are based on a herd this size producing kids of this amount, you know, 50% boys, 50% girls, 2 kids a year, and that's how we worked it out what we could afford with the bank. Well, okay, we've had a setback with the poisoning, but you know, the rest of them will bounce back and the herd will start to grow again. But the capacity, I really don't know. I mean, I know the land can take it for the food. We can grow more than enough food for what we've got here. But if this repeats itself, well, it will repeat itself, won't it? It's just when. Will it be while Toon and I are here? Knowing our look, probably, yeah. It's lucky, really. How's this for positive thinking? It's lucky that the floodwater is still present here. It's lucky that we can't do anything with the island at the moment, although we'd love to get the goats back on there into that house. I don't want them eating on the island because everything's just sodden, and you can imagine there's goat muck everywhere as well. So, you know, that you don't want them bloody drinking out the lake and all sorts like that. So it's to me, it's a blessing in disguise. We can't make any rush decisions. We need time to take on board everything, you know, and probably every day we are thinking of new things, you know, that we hadn't contemplated before, and we're like, right, pop that on the list. That's something that needs addressing. You know, things like the solar room. Not a lot we can do about that, but we're going to have to do some block work inside and just bloody get everything up as high as we can. We got a little solar room. I don't know whether you can see it. Got a little solar, I don't know if my finger's pointing in the right place, solar shack out there. We're not quick enough. 2 batteries went underwater. Luckily the inverter wasn't there, it was broken. Again, positive thinking, isn't it? Luckily our inverter was broken and it had been sent off for repair, that one. And we don't really know what happened to that. It doesn't look like a serious fault, but when the guys built that shack for us, again funded by you guys, as all the goat house was, when they wired it back up, it went bang and there was smoke everywhere. And so hopefully that can be fixed. It's taken an age to sort it out. Toon's been in constant, well, giving him earache, when's it coming back. But again, thank God it didn't come back, because we would have put it back in there and the whole thing would have been underwater. So yeah, I think someone's looking out for us to some degree. You guys have just been incredible, you really have. And I admit I haven't read all the comments on the videos. In fact, I've I've read very few. I haven't even opened the comment section. It's just when we get an alert on the phone saying that we've got a comment, sometimes I'll read one that's on there. And when I get time, if I get time, I will read them eventually. But just to let you know, it's just, you know, considering it's online, and I was always a bit skeptical about, you know, people making acquaintances online and that. It's you can't be that emotionally attached. I'll tell you what, I was wrong big time. And the strength you can draw from other people is amazing. I was speaking to one chap only yesterday, and he was saying just love the way you and Toon work as a team, and you know, you just got so many things going on, and you're just in it together, working together. And it did get me thinking. I thought, yeah, he's right. If I wasn't here with Toon, then I'd have just walked away. I really would have. I'd have just packed my bag and off I went. And I'm sure Toon wouldn't mind me telling you the Armageddon night when the water was still coming in, because you've got to remember, like, if you imagine a spring tide, it was coming in like that. Or if you've been in the UK and you've witnessed the tide coming in the Wash, not far from well, I think it's Hunstanton area, east coast, you know, it races across the land, and that's what it was like here, you know. And we didn't know when it was going to stop, so and it didn't sort of slow down. All of a sudden it just went, oh, that looks like it's it. And but prior to that, when we were thinking shit, you know, we're just, what we're going to do, and it was coming to a point where we're like, oh, well, Toon wasn't even contemplating it, but I was contemplating an evacuation plan, you know, whether we were going to walk out of the farm with the goats, knocking on people's doors, have you got any room at the inn, can you take us in, and 60 odd goats, you know, or whether we were going to put them on the veranda and sort of like try and lock them in there and walk out and leave them. Next day Toon was like, I'd have never left them. Oh, right, okay. So she'd have probably been in the house sitting on the sofa with him, you know, getting as high as possible. But when just before the water level stopped rising, Toon was in the kitchen cooking me dinner. Can you believe this? You know, at best I thought I was going to get like mama noodle soup, you know, boiled mama soup noodles. But no, she was rustling a feast up, and I can't remember what she said now, but I just said, look, it's just as long as we're all right and the goats are all right, and we got the power, we'll be all right. And she just said, oh, thanks for giving me strength. That's the only time she's ever said that to me in all the years that we've been married, so coming up 16 years. The only other time was when her dad passed away, and luckily at the time my boss picked up the course that I was supposed to be delivering the next day, and within 24 hours I was on a plane, thanks to him and his wife letting me go. And I got here, you know, just before the funeral. Yeah, apart from that, it's the only time that Toon said, you know, thanks for giving me the strength, I couldn't cope without you. There's been plenty of times when it's been the other way around, I tell you. It's she gives me strength beyond my imagination. You know, there were occasions that afternoon and evening where Toon and I were working together. Some things we had to do separately, you know, because you can imagine we had goats all over the place and trying to sort them out, sandbagging to do. And there were occasions where we just couldn't physically lift stuff. We're trying to do everything quick but still do it right. And you know, there's something kicked in where you roll your sleeves up and you get on with it. But what I found harder was afterwards. You know, when you relax, it's like that was saying, take your foot off the pedal. You know, you're not letting your hair down, but you're almost lowering your guard for your brain, and you're just like, oh, thank God for that, I think it's going to be all right. And then when we got the call from a friend in the village about that second dam, you know, being a possibility that that might break. I was an absolute bag of wreck, and that's probably a terrible phrase, Lee, but I was emotionally wrecked inside. And you know, we'd gone to bed, and it started raining again, and you could hear the water in the river, thunder and lightning, and I just thought, I'm not gonna sleep tonight. I need to. Can you believe it? I've now had to resort putting the video camera into the fridge to try and cool it down. Anyway, yeah, that night I had relaxed because the water was going down, and yeah, when we got the news that the second dam, there was a danger that that may break if we got the heavy rains, I couldn't sleep. All I could hear was the thunder and the lightning and the rain coming down. I thought, any time now, but I know he was going to give us a ring if, you know, he was keeping tabs on it, because they were flooded in the village. It's not just us, there's loads of places flooded, and some people a lot worse off than us. Oh yeah, I just try to get to sleep, just try and clear my mind, but it's not easy. Wasn't easy at all. And Toon was on the phone. She'd gone onto like Facebook group and all that sort of thing for keeping an eye on the weather. And I just laid in bed with my head on her lap. And if she wasn't for me, if it wasn't for her, sorry, just sort of like playing with my head, scratching my head, I don't think I'd have slept all night. It's not the first time she's done that. First time I ever delivered a training course was in Gibraltar, and she went out there with me, and I was just so worried about delivering the course the next day. And yeah, she did that and just sang me a song, and I managed to get about an hour's sleep. So she is a bloody legend, that woman. Bloody legend.